Hello, rich girls. Welcome back to Old Money, the podcast to help you build the trust fund you wish you were born with. I'm your host, Amber Evenson. So happy you're here with me today. How are you? Are you present? Are you in your body? What are you doing? Are you driving? Are you walking? Are you listening in your kitchen? Take a quick pause to check in with yourself. How are you? If you listened to the last episode 139, we talked all about the ways that our bodies are trying to communicate with us. This all started and was inspired by our episode all about nervous system regulation with Jessica Watt, 138, so 2 episodes ago. And you guys had such an incredible response to that I wanted to go deeper with you into this whole idea of how we can expand our nervous system to hold more wealth. But for most of us, that's not just thinking different or doing an affirmation or meditation. It's about understanding where all of our money stories, money habits, coping mechanisms, where they all came from. And most of the time, it's not from like a conscious decision that we're making or a mistake that you learned from, but something that was handed to you before you were even old enough to know you were receiving it. If you have kids, you know this. They are little sponges, right? You swear, they swear. You say something, they pick it up. And what about you? You were little once. You watched, you observed, you absorbed, and your nervous system filed it all away as truth before you ever knew what was right or wrong, before you had a bank account. And nobody ever sat you down to say, this is what we believe about money, and it's not healthy, so don't think that way. You just get by. So today's episode is breaking down how money beliefs get passed down without a single conversation, a lot of the patterns that come up from family and culture and what you watched on TV growing up. If you watched Richie Rich and were as impacted as me in the 90s, like you can relate. And lastly, and this is an important one, I'm going to introduce you to 2 identities that will change how you see every financial decision you've ever made with a lot of empathy for where you've been and where you're going. I teased this on the last episode, but stick around to the end because I have something free for you that is going to help you walk through all of this in a super organized way. It's the most popular chapter of the Old Money Mindset Workbook. I'll talk about it. So let's get into it. Okay, so last week we talked all about the physical signs of nervous system overload that are all connected back to stress or money stories. And if you listened to Jessica's episode and you heard her story about having such a phenomenal month in her business, reaching new milestones and new goals, and yet her body completely rejected it and she shut down, this is what we're talking about. It's all about understanding where these ideas came from, where we got all of these weird fears and triggers and worries that are probably not rational in our adult mind. But when we're triggered or something comes up, nothing has to be rational. Nothing has to make sense. It's all stuff for us that started at home when we were little, before we understood money, before we even had a word for it. Money behaviors and also coping mechanisms with stress, these are all learned patterns, not personality traits. They're also not fixed. They can change over time. They're not static. They can change and adapt and grow. But the way you're relating to money today, however that is, if it's anxiety, if it's avoidance, if it's impulsive spending, under earning, continually carrying debt, it didn't start with you. Because children don't learn money from conversations. They learn it from an emotional atmosphere of a household. If you haven't yet listened to my episode with Samantha Bird, it's way long ago. She and I talked a lot about how childhood really shapes the way that we interact with money. And she gave a really great framework for how to help your children understand money on, I would say, a really practical level. Go back and listen to that if you're a parent. It's so amazing. She's an incredible creator, and she now has programming around how to help your kids learn about money from a practical standpoint. We didn't talk so much about the emotional side of things, and that's where I want to dig in today. So again, if you're a parent, I'll link it in the show notes. Go back and listen to Samantha's episode. It's phenomenal. But also, let's go back and talk about you, because I bet we're not giving enough shine to you. Your nervous system stored all of the early observations that happened in your household as safety strategy. Like, this is what money means. This is how we survive around it. This is what I do to stay safe. And all of these strategies become habits by the time that we're adults. And most of the time, we are not even aware of it. So, in Jessica's example, she told a story of parents who were always fighting about money. There was never enough money, and money caused a lot of tension in her household, created conflict between her parents. And think about it. When you're a kid, you're not like looking into the root cause of the issue. You're like, oh no, this thing equals stress and disconnection and not a loving, happy household environment. You're not thinking about it. You're just recognizing the correlation between money equals strife in my family. This is what I'm talking about when I'm referencing the inheritance that we didn't even know we got. We are getting the money trauma, money stories, beliefs about the haves and haves nots, the working hard, all the things. This is inheritance that we got passed down from us, from our families, from society and culture, and from observed behavior. So I joke about, the trust fund you wish you were born with. We all got an inheritance, baby. We all got something. And most of us received a poverty mindset. And listen, it's not our parents' fault. I've gone through so much therapy to really see my parents as humans doing the best that they could, having babies at a young age and just navigating that. And gosh, I want to make sure we're giving our parents grace where they deserve it, because they're just humans. It's their first time on this earth too. Navigating everything is a lot. And listen, if you have children, you probably know they're going to go to therapy about you one day, no matter how perfect you were. But the family environment is the first and most important thing that shapes our money habits as adults. So how did money feel in your house? Was it a source of calm? Was it a source of tension? Was it ever even brought up? Was it something that you knew about? Did you know about money? Did you earn money? Or was it something that there was secrecy around? Were there arguments about bills or how much you could spend? Was it celebrated? Was it feared? Whatever it was, you absorbed all of it. And if you're anything like me, you probably heard a lot of these tropes that all 80s and 90s parents said, like, oh, we can't afford that, or money doesn't grow on trees, which tells your brain that money is fragile and scarce. Or if you were like Jessica and you saw fights between your parents because of money, your nervous system is just going to equate money equals danger, money equals disconnection. If you had parents who never talked about money, you learned that money is private or shameful or not to be discussed, which holds you back in your life from figuring out what you need to know about money. Or if you had a parent that spent impulsively or hid purchases from the other parent, you probably either mirrored it or overcorrected into hoarding. My lineage is very interesting. I've mentioned this before, but on my father's side, his mother, my grandmother, was Jewish during World War II, escaped Holland to try to find her father, who was a captain or admiral or something in the Dutch Royal Navy stationed in Indonesia. And my grandmother, her little brother, and her mother fled Holland for Indonesia and were captured by the Japanese. And she grew up in a concentration camp. Her mother ended up passing away from starvation, malnutrition in that concentration camp. My grandmother and her little brother were liberated, and after being liberated and being tortured and starved for all those years, were literally living on the streets of Indonesia, digging food out of garbage cans until they were recognized by somebody as speaking Dutch and somehow got them back to Holland and reunited with her father. What do you think this would do to you as a human being when you grow up in a state of starvation, not having enough trauma, like capital T trauma? It affected the way that she lived her whole life and the way that she raised my father and the way that my father raised me. This idea of scarcity, this idea of, wanting to have a lot or wanting to monitor every penny. My grandmother would always have a stock of Campbell's chicken soups in her pantry just to have extra food around. And she was also a clean freak. She loved to clean. She died of lung cancer and joked with me that she was dying because she mixed bleach with ammonia because she needed everything to be so spotless. But she would literally clean the Campbell's soup cans in her pantry, like wipe them down, clean them, make them all sanitized. This shapes the way that you interact with the rest of the world forever. And so when people bring up things like generational trauma, it's not like your ancestors so long ago went through this thing and then you're just repeating it because they're your ancestor and you have some unresolved karma. No, it's literally passed down from generation to generation. And it's not my grandmother's fault that that happened to her. She did her best to cope. And then she taught my dad whatever she taught him. And he did his best to cope. And he taught me whatever he taught me. And I'm doing my best to cope. So there's a lot of layers of forgiveness that have to be explored when we talk about this, because our family doesn't mean to set us up for failure. Our family doesn't mean to teach us bad money habits. Our family doesn't mean to have us self-sabotage. It's just we were all doing the best we could do with the tools that we had at the time. And that is what I believe is the healing that's needed generationally. When we talk about breaking generational curses, that's what that is. The recognition, the forgiveness, the understanding, and the commitment to learn to do different, to learn to do better, to heal these things for ourselves so that we pass on what we pass on to our children, our nieces, our nephews, kids in our lives is different than what we got. It's maybe a little bit more aware, a little bit more evolved, or a little bit more slanted towards success. So the inheritance, we've inherited a lot from our families, but we've also inherited a lot from social and cultural conditioning. Pop culture, the stories that you consumed about rich people, the movies where the villain is always the wealthy one. The first villain that scared the absolute living shit out of me was Cruella de Vil. You guys know how I feel about dogs, right? When this bitch comes through trying to kill all these puppies for her fur coat and her fancy car, I have never been so scared of a villain than I was of Cruella de Vil. She was the wealthy one. But then also in the 90s, I was obsessed with 90210 and Kelly Taylor being the rich girl at school and Donna Martin watching Clueless, and you have Cher and you have Dion and they have this fabulous life. And then what do we take in from all of that is like they're airheads or they're dumb, or Kelly Taylor's going to get like burned and then shot and then addicted to cocaine and then cycle back again. And you know what I mean? It's like we pick up all this cultural inference about money from all of these different places. And for me, it made me really curious about money, especially when in my household, I was getting messages like, must be nice, or oh, like working hard sucks and we don't want to go to work and we're not interested in work. I didn't have a lot of exposure to careers that could be fun or creative or fulfilling. I didn't even know what marketing was until I got to college, and now I'm running a marketing agency. I just knew what I was exposed to, and it seemed like everybody in my town's mom was a teacher. My mom was in real estate, so I was like, okay, I'll do real estate, I thought. We're all just taking in and absorbing what we're exposed to. And a lot of people are exposed to some kind of interesting ideas. If we were objectively evaluating them now as adults, like rational adults, you would hear parents say things like, oh, money changes people, or she sold out. Or very common, if you go back and listen to my episode with Mira Katz, such an interesting observation that she picked up from her family, having artists as parents of, you know, real artists don't care about money. And then another side of her family that was like, you have options and education and opportunity with money. These are not neutral inputs. This is all programming. And so some of the programming, especially for millennials, as we've gone through, I mean, the 2008 crash is like, you're never safe. Hustle culture and girl boss culture told us that our worth was measured in how much we sacrifice and burn ourselves out. And then think about what we've gotten from just society at large as it relates to scarcity messaging. Black Friday, Amazon Prime Day, limited time offers, fear of missing out. We've all been trained by marketing to relate to money from urgency, not abundance. And what about TikTok Shop these days? It's literally insane. Like, you've got to get this thing. It's going to change your life. Like, all of this is just react, react, react. So then we've created these habits. We've inherited these habits that completely feed into that. And then the last thing too is just observed behavior, because as you know, if you have children or if you were a child once, children are watching, they're listening. And we know once kids go to school, that's when parents lose all the influence, because you spend so much less time with your children after they're in school all day long. So teachers, friends, other people's parents, daycare, babysitters, media you didn't know that they were exposed to. We're all taking it in all the time. But what happens in old money families is that they're very intentional about the inheritance, not just about the money, but about the nervous system relationship with money. Old money families and families that are comfortable with money and that are wealthy, their children grew up in environments where money was safe and plentiful and there. And that obviously wires a child completely differently. But what I'm seeing is just the mere exposure to regulated conversations about money, about moving, about getting a new house, about upgrading, about, negotiating at a job, investing in a business, saving money on this so we can do that. And you're sharing that with your children. And when I say old money family, I'm not talking about like the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers. These heirs are not going to like sit in a financial literacy class, but they're just absorbing a felt sense of financial safety from birth. And I know what you're probably thinking is like, okay, well, if money is not safe and plentiful and simply there, like, how can I create that environment for my child? Like, they don't just get to go on boats and yachts and to private schools. I get it. But it's more about understanding more than just money, the 5 dimensions of wealth, of teaching your kids how to maintain good relationships over time, teaching your children the value of, and I don't want to say networking, but it's like some of my friends now are the same friends that I had when I was in literal kindergarten, right? How do you maintain a connection with those people over time? How do you take care of your health? How do you emotionally regulate? All of these things are taught. These things are intentional. And when I say old money families, I'm not referencing back, like I said, to these established legacy families in America. I'm talking about an old money mindset. So in a minute, I'm going to show you exactly how this programming shows up because I want to give you a framework that's going to make everything we talk about make sense. Just stay with me here. I have introduced 2 identities to the girlies in my old money mindset course, and I want to share them with you here. I don't think I've ever talked about this on the podcast, and this is the thesis to everything I teach in old money mindset and old money method. Old money mindset's really like the level 1 foundational, and old money method is once you've mastered the mindset, you go on to build the machine for your money. And the old money mindset course is not really about changing your mindset. It's about recognizing the 2 identities that we all have and also learning how to become unshakable no matter what's going on in your life and having the tools to process big emotions, money trauma, relational trauma, all the things that create abundance in all of the areas of your life. And this framework of the 2 identities are the poor little girl and the wealthy woman. The poor little girl, I want to introduce with a lot of care because this is not an insult. This is actually funny. I just started with a new therapist and she was talking about when she starts working with new clients, she goes, you might be one person, but when you come to a session with me, we're actually talking about 4 people. If you have a relationship, we're talking about you, we're talking about little you, and we're talking about your partner and your partner's little version of themselves. Like the grown-up version and the little version show up all of the time in relationship. And it's the same thing in our lives as well. The poor little girl is not weak. She just survived everything that she went through to the best of her ability. She does not need to be judged. She just needs to be seen. And the poor little girl, I call her this because obviously it's the childlike version of ourselves. And that could be very little. It could be you in high school. It could be you in your 20s struggling with money. And the poor little girl is both financially poor, but also we feel badly for her, like poor little girl, like we have empathy for her because her nervous system learned some shit that she doesn't need or want. She learned things like money is unstable. It's hard to create wealth. Authority decides your worth. Security comes from obedience and approval and overworking, overextending. And this is not a character flaw. It's just a survival strategy. She has been people-pleasing, tolerating poor leadership or bad relationships. She has been underpaid. She has not negotiated. She has anxiety around everything, especially money. She is impulse shopping, in debt, and she doesn't know how to get out of it. But the poor little girl often acts like a little girl does when she gets overwhelmed. So instead of healthily communicating boundaries or setting new expectations with leadership at work because they're overwhelmed, she just overcompensates and then blows up and then doesn't deliver projects on time and throws a tantrum and blows up the relationship and the trust with her employer. That's poor little girl behavior. But it's not because she's not smart or not strong. It's because she's just running software that kept her safe when she was a kid, when she was younger. And the problem is that that software does not work for an abundant adult life, the life that you want. So this poor little girl is operating within all of us and often showing up at the most inconvenient times when things are at the limit, at the edge, about to boil over, and then you have a tantrum and make everything so much worse. But the wealthy woman is also a part of your identity. It's a part of my identity. It's part of everybody's identity. And this is the version of you who has updated the software. She's not a fantasy and she's not a coastal grandmother 50 years from now walking on the beach of Nantucket wrapped in cashmere. She is you. She is the same woman you are, but she just has a different baseline for her nervous system. The key traits that she carries include the fact that she's calm around money, she's calm in an emergency, she's calm and rational when emotions boil over. I talk a lot about this in Old Money Mindset around the internal family therapy and all of the C's. So calm, compassionate, curious, all the ways that you can be when things are hitting the fan. That's the wealthy woman. She also trusts in herself. She trusts in herself to create wealth, to rebuild wealth. She knows that she's going to bet on herself over anybody else. And she has very, very, very strong boundaries in work, in relationships, and with spending. I think another key trait of the wealthy woman is that she's really good at discernment. Like she chooses quality over quantity or urgency in every dimension of her life. She makes decisions that are not reactive, but thoughtful and proactive or responsive, not impulsive. And she understands the thing that the poor little girl never learned, which is wealth does not come from chasing money. It comes from becoming the type of person who can create it and hold it and rebuild it. It is a nervous system state. And this is the deep dive on what I was talking about with Jessica and what I really wanted to make sure that we totally broke down for you, which is the fact that your nervous system does determine your wealth ceiling. But how? Like, why? What does that mean? It's because if your nervous system believes money is unsafe or it's going to cause disconnection, evolutionarily speaking, and in our history, we've learned these habits that will have us unconsciously push abundance away in relationships, in partnerships, in work, in money, in all the things, even when you're consciously trying to build it or grow it. If you are panicking or feeling guilty when income increases, like this is too good, like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, that is a sign that your nervous system is capping your wealth. If you self-sabotage right before you have a financial win, like you know you're getting your tax return, you know you have debt to pay off, but you're like, I'm getting my tax return, let's go to Vegas, and you blow all your money, you are self-sabotaging your financial gains. That is your nervous system capping your wealth. If you are staying in a toxic work situation because leaving feels more scary than staying, and remember, our brains love to keep us safe, they hate new things, that is your nervous system capping your wealth. And again, if you are overspending after earning or you can't keep money, this is your nervous system discharging the discomfort of having more than feels safe. This is why information alone does not work. This is why your girl is doing Qigong every morning, okay? Like this is our body knowing exactly what to do with money and still not doing it because our nervous system is overriding the part of our brain that thinks rationally. So the first step is not strategy, it's just awareness. In the last episode, we named some of the physical triggers that we might experience that might tell us that we're not in the most regulated spot. And then now we're naming the programming. That is the beginning of rewriting it. And speaking of rewriting it, I had some really great feedback from the women who have already taken Old Money Mindset. They are obsessed with the workbook. The workbook is it's chapters long and it goes through all 4 modules of Old Money Mindset. But the one that I think is the most impactful for this conversation, I extracted from the Old Money Mindset workbook, and I'm giving you a free chapter that walks you through remapping your money story. It is free. The link is in the show notes to get it. I want you to go download this workbook. It's in a Google Doc, so you can go ahead and you'll get it sent directly to your email. And it's got a whole bunch of amazing journal prompts that are going to walk you through everything from your earliest money memories, messages you inherited growing up, what money was like in your household, and how that plays into your current money emotions and your core money beliefs. Then we're going to, after identifying your money program and identifying where they came from, we're going to challenge the beliefs that you might have. And if you're like, I don't even know what money beliefs I have, I'm going to give you 10 of the most common money beliefs that I hear and new perspectives that will change the way you think about money every single day. So I'll put this right at the top of the show notes. This is going to be a free download, a free chapter of the workbook that you can go and do. And I want you to do it, especially before next week's episode. And the reason is, and I am thrilled about next week's episode, we have a very special guest that is coming on to talk all about the special experience you might have had if you are a first generation American. Talk about inheriting some trauma and some money beliefs and also some cultural beliefs that might fly in the face of the American way of dealing with money. This is honestly such a tender episode. It's so amazing. We talk especially a lot about Latin families and what that's like. So if you are first generation American, if that's your story, or if you love someone whose story it is, this episode is going to be so important. And it's such a perfect complement to doing the exercises in this free workbook chapter. Give it 20 minutes. Bring your honesty. You don't have to share it with anyone. It's just for you. Print it out, do it on the computer, whatever. I promise you will find value in this workbook. And next week, whether you're a first generation American or not, it's going to give you so much insight into the cultural expectations of money in our country. I'm so excited for you guys to hear this one. Okay, I love you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.